The wedding hall shimmered beneath crystal chandeliers, but the air was tight enough to choke on. Guests whispered behind jeweled fans as the groom, Caleb Darrow, reached into his suit pocket with a cold, rehearsed expression. His bride, Leora Mbeki, stood frozen in her elegant white gown, radiant, hopeful, and completely unaware of the storm about to break. Then he unfolded the papers, a prenuptial agreement. Gasps rippled across the room. Leora's breath trembled as her eyes darted from the document to the man she thought loved her. He spoke softly, but the words cut deep. "It's just a precaution. Sign it, or the wedding ends here." Her heart shattered, but she signed. What Caleb never imagined, what no one in that glittering hall knew, was that the very estate surrounding them didn't belong to him, but to the woman he had just humiliated. Before we continue, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. And if you enjoy emotional African folktale dramas, feel free to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories. Leora had always been taught that silence was a kind of armor. Growing up in a cramped two-room apartment at the edge of Kimbala City, she learned early that life rarely gave warnings before it delivered its blows. Her mother, Abeni, worked tirelessly as a housekeeper, scrubbing floors, polishing antique railings, and tending to a vast estate that glittered like a world entirely separate from their own. Yet despite the exhaustion carved into her mother's palms, Abeni never complained. She would hold little Leora close at night and whisper, "Your worth is not measured by what you have, child, but by who you are." But life's cruelest truth is that even good people carry secrets. When Leora was just 15, her mother collapsed in the grand foyer of the Darrow estate, the very same place where Leora would one day sign a prenup with shaking hands. Doctors claimed it was exhaustion, but the whispers among the staff hinted at something darker. Tension with the estate's powerful owners, arguments overheard, threats exchanged behind closed doors. Before Leora could piece anything together, her mother was gone, taken by a sudden illness that felt too convenient, too silent, too unresolved. For weeks, Leora drifted through life like a ghost, numb and directionless. But one rainy afternoon, a sharply dressed man appeared at her doorstep, an older black gentleman with silver hair and eyes that held both sorrow and urgency. He introduced himself as Kato Mirembe, the personal lawyer of a man named Elias Warren. Leora had never heard the name before. The lawyer stepped inside, removed his hat respectfully, and revealed a truth that seemed too heavy for her young shoulders. Her mother had been the caretaker, confidant, and according to a sealed document, the secretly acknowledged heir of Elias Warren, the original owner of the massive estate her mother worked in. Elias had no wife, no children, and no trusted family. His only real bond in life was with Abeni, who had cared for him in his final years with loyalty, dignity, and compassion. Grateful and aware of his impending death, he willed everything to her: the entire estate, the surrounding lands, the investments tied to the property, even the staff protections. Abeni never told anyone, not even Leora. Perhaps she feared the consequences, or perhaps she believed she wasn't worthy. Kato explained that the estate was held in trust for Leora until she turned 18, and so, on her 18th birthday, in a quiet, private meeting, Leora signed the papers that legally transferred everything into her name. She had walked out of that meeting feeling as though the world had lost its gravitational pull. She owned an empire, yet she lived in a rented room with peeling paint. She had money enough to silence the world, yet she still worked part-time jobs to pay basic bills because she could not bring herself to touch wealth soaked in grief. But secrets grow heavy, and hers was heavier than most. She visited the estate only twice after inheriting it, once to see where her mother spent her days, once to stand alone in the garden she'd swept as a child. Each time, the walls seemed to stare at her, waiting for her to claim them. But she couldn't, not yet. So she quietly instructed Kato to keep everything discreet. The property continued operating under trusted management. The staff were paid. Repairs were made, but her name remained hidden, as if tucked between the pages of a book no one dared open. Leora wanted a life built on love, not money. A life where someone chose her for her heart, not her inheritance. Years later, when she met Calum Darrow, charming, confident, with a smile that felt like sunlight breaking through winter clouds, she thought she had found that love. They met at a charity outreach where she was volunteering as a youth mentor. Calum seemed captivated by her humility, her quiet strength. He said she was unlike anyone he had ever met, and she believed him. They spent long nights talking about dreams, about building a life together. He told her he loved her because she saw the world in ways he never had. She told him she loved him because he made her feel safe again. But she never told him about the estate. And Calum never told her how much his family disapproved of her. To them, she was a nobody, an orphan, a girl with no pedigree, no visible wealth, no connections worthy of the Darrow name. His mother, Isolde Darrow, made her disdain painfully clear the first time they met. She looked Leora up and down as though evaluating an item at an auction, and her expression made it clear the item failed inspection. "This family has standards," Isolde had said sharply as soon as Calum left the room, her voice echoing through the marble hall. "You can't love my son into greatness, and we won't allow him to marry a liability." Leora swallowed the pain that day. She had been swallowing it ever since. The pressure didn't stop. Isolde lectured Calum daily, reminding him of what he stood to lose. "You will sign a prenup," she insisted. "If she truly loves you, she will have no reason to refuse." "I do." Calum wasn't blind to his mother's manipulation, but he had internalized enough of her fears to believe in the prenup, and slowly, under the weight of family expectations, he changed. His laughter faded, his warmth dimmed. The man Leora fell in love with became someone cautious, guarded, unsure. Still, she believed in him. She believed love could survive pressure, until the moment he handed her the papers on their wedding day. In that moment, her world split open. What Calum never knew, what he could never imagine, was that the prenup he forced on her was meaningless, because nothing in this estate belonged to him. It belonged to the woman he thought needed protection from greed. And the worst part? Leora still loved him. But love built on broken trust always trembles. Calum Darrow grew up in a world where wealth was not just comfort, it was identity. From the moment he could walk, his mother, Isolde, drilled into him that the Darrow legacy was sacred. "We are not like other families," she often said. "We do not mix with people who bring nothing to the table." Every room in the Darrow mansion echoed with that same doctrine. Legacy, purity, control. Calum internalized it over the years, even when he tried to convince himself he didn't. It lingered beneath his skin like a second heartbeat. When he met Leora, something in him shifted. She wasn't like the polished socialites his mother paraded around him. She had warmth, a quiet confidence. She listened in a way no one else ever did. For the first time, Calum felt seen not as an heir, not as an asset, but as a man. He fell for her honesty, her strength, her softness. But falling in love with her meant inviting battle. The moment Isolde found out, the storm began. "What do you know about her?" Isolde demanded one night, pacing the living room with tension so thick it vibrated through the walls. "I know enough," Calum answered. "Enough for what? A fling? An experiment? Certainly not marriage. She makes me happy, mother." Isolde scoffed. "Happiness doesn't last. Wealth does. And I will not allow you to sacrifice generations of family stability for a girl with no background." Calum clenched his jaw, his hands curling into fists. "This isn't about money. It's about who I want to spend my life with." "That's exactly why money matters," she shot back. "What do you think happens when someone with nothing marries someone with everything? They drain you. They leech off you. They pull you down into their chaos. Leora isn't like that," he insisted, but his voice wavered. Isolde's eyes sharpened, catching the crack in his certainty. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You think you're the first Darrow man to fall for a sweet face? This family has rules for a reason. If she truly loves you, she will sign a prenup. If she refuses, that tells you everything." He wanted to argue. He wanted to defend Leora with all the conviction she deserved. But Isolde knew exactly where to strike. She reminded him that the Darrow empire, the companies his father left behind, the trust funds allocated for his future, all of it could be taken away if he defied the family council. She played her trump card perfectly. If you refuse the prenup, we will cut you off. Completely. That threat lingered with him for weeks. Caleb began changing subtly. He became more cautious with money around Leora. He hesitated when she talked about the future. He asked more questions about her childhood, her mother, her financial stability, questions that left Leora confused and slightly wounded. She tried to brush it off, attributing it to pre-wedding stress, but the truth seeped through cracks she didn't yet see. A week before the wedding, things escalated. Isolde called Caleb into her private study, closing the door behind her. The room smelled of expensive perfume and old, polished wood. She placed a folder on the mahogany desk and slid it toward him. This is the prenuptial agreement. It protects the Darrow holdings, the trust funds, and every family asset. All she must do is sign. Caleb didn't touch the folder. His stomach twisted. You don't have to do this, he murmured. She's not after our money. Isolde's voice softened in a dangerous, motherly way. Caleb, darling, I'm doing this to protect you. You may trust her heart, but you cannot trust the unpredictability of life. People change. Marriages fail. Accidents happen. Divorce courts get ugly. This prenup protects both of you, especially you. He exhaled heavily. I don't want her to think I don't trust her. If she loves you, she'll understand. A pause. If she doesn't, better to find out now. Isolde's manipulation dug deep, and Caleb, raised to believe her voice carried absolute authority, let his growing fears overshadow his love. But deep down, he knew Leora would be hurt. He knew this would break something fragile between them. Still, he convinced himself it was necessary. He tried to justify it as responsibility, not distrust. He convinced himself that every wealthy man did this. But the truth was simpler. He wanted approval from his mother, from the family, from the legacy he'd been groomed to protect. On the night before the wedding, he sat alone in his room, staring at the prenup papers. His chest tightened with guilt. He whispered into the silence, "She'll understand, right?" But even he didn't believe it. Meanwhile, Leora spent the evening with her closest friend, Amaya. They laughed softly, reminiscing about their lives, their hopes, their fears. But beneath her smile, Leora carried a weight she couldn't share: the ownership of the estate, the legacy her mother left behind, the truth she feared would ruin everything. Amaya noticed the distant look in her eyes. You okay? She asked gently. Leora forced a smile. Just nerves. Big day tomorrow. Amaya squeezed her hand. You deserve happiness, Lee. Don't let anyone make you feel less. Those words became a shield in Leora's heart. The next morning, tensions reached their peak. While Leora prepared with serene determination, Isolde interrogated every detail of the ceremony, ensuring it displayed the Darrow superiority. She strutted through the venue, issuing sharp commands to staff, commenting loudly on how humble origins required immaculate presentation. Caleb watched his mother with a mix of guilt and resentment. He wanted the day to be perfect for Leora, but the prenup weighed on him like a stone chained to his ribs. Right before the ceremony, Isolde approached him again. You have the papers, yes? He stiffened. Yes. And you'll handle it? He hesitated. It feels wrong to do it there, in front of everyone. Isolde's voice sliced through him. Then do it before the vows. If she refuses, the wedding ends instantly. I won't have a parasite entering this family. His throat tightened. Don't talk about her like that. Then prove she isn't. Her words burned into his mind. In that moment, Caleb realized he was no longer fighting for love. He was fighting for approval, for security, for the version of himself his mother had shaped. As the ceremony began, he forced a smile. Leora walked down the aisle, glowing with love, unaware of the storm waiting to strike. Isolde watched with satisfaction, confident she held control over both of them. But beneath the gold-trimmed roof of that grand hall, destiny was already shifting. The estate, she believed, belonged to her son. The empire she guarded so fiercely had never been his to begin with. And soon, the truth would tear their world apart. The wedding day unfolded like a grand theatrical performance, one meticulously crafted to showcase the power and prestige of the Darrow family. Sunlight poured through the stained glass windows of the estate's private cathedral, scattering vibrant colors across the marble floor. A full orchestra played a soft, breathtaking melody. Guests in shimmering gowns and tailored suits filled the pews, murmuring in pretentious admiration for the wealth around them. Everything looked perfect, except the tension woven tightly beneath the surface. Leora stood behind a pair of carved wooden doors, her heart pounding with nervous excitement. The satin fabric of her dress hugged her frame gracefully, the delicate beadwork glimmering like a constellation. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine this day as she had once dreamed it, gentle, hopeful, sacred. She had envisioned Calem's face lighting up when he saw her walk down the aisle. She wanted to believe that love alone could carry them through any storm. But as she stood waiting for the cue to enter, she sensed an unusual heaviness in the air. The whispers behind her bridesmaids, who belonged more to Calem's family than to her life, were laced with judgment. Poor thing. She really thinks this is a fairy tale. She'll never fit into this world. I heard the prenup is brutal. Wealthy families have to protect themselves, you know. Leora tried to shut their voices out, but each word stung like a lash. She swallowed hard, reminding herself that none of them understood her. None of them knew where she came from, what she carried, what she had survived. The doors opened. A collective gasp echoed through the aisle as she stepped forward. Some gasps were admiration. She was undeniably stunning, but others were tinged with disdain, as though she were a wildflower forced into a bouquet of roses. Leora kept her head high, her eyes soft, her steps steady. She searched for Calem at the altar. He looked handsome, strong jawline, tailored suit, a posture that screamed confidence. But something in his expression was wrong. He wasn't smiling. His eyes weren't glowing with wonder. Instead, they were clouded, troubled, distant. Leora felt a cold prickle spread through her chest. When she finally reached him, Calem offered his hand, but there was a stiffness to it, a hesitation she had never felt from him before. She looked at him gently, silently, pleading for reassurance. He didn't meet her eyes. The ceremony began, the priest's voice resonating through the hall. The vows approached slowly, each second stretching thin. Leora's breath grew shaky, nerves swirling into dread she didn't want to name. Then everything stopped. Before the priest could move to the exchange of rings, Calem raised his hand. I need to address something first, he said, his voice tight. A ripple of confusion ran through the guests. Isolde Darrow, seated in the front row, nodded subtly as if she had been waiting for this moment. Calem exhaled deeply and reached into the inner pocket of his suit. Leora's heart dropped before she even saw the papers. He unfolded them with trembling fingers. The crisp white sheets seemed blinding under the cathedral lights. The sound of rustling paper echoed like thunder through the silent hall. I need you to sign this, he said quietly, though his words carried to every corner of the room. A prenuptial agreement. The guests gasped, some covering their mouths in shock, others smirking as though their suspicions had been confirmed. Leora stared at the document, her vision blurring. Her ears rang, her throat tightened painfully. This couldn't be happening. Not here on their wedding day. Not in front of everyone. Calem avoided her gaze, his voice cracking slightly. It's just a precaution. My family insists. If you love me, you'll sign it. The room spun around her. Her fingers trembled uncontrollably. She could feel hundreds of eyes stabbing into her skin. She felt naked, exposed, betrayed. She tried to speak, but her voice faltered. Calem, why now? Why didn't you tell me before? His jaw clenched. I didn't want to worry you, but this is necessary. We can't continue without it. Leora's chest constricted. The ceremony, the decorations, the guests, the orchestra. Every detail had been orchestrated for perfection, yet here she was, humiliated before the world. The man she loved enough to marry didn't trust her. He believed she could one day become a threat, a burden, a liability. The irony clawed at her heart. If anyone needed protection from greed, from deception, from exploitation, it was her, not Calum. He had no idea who she truly was, what she already owned, what she had inherited. He had no idea that the entire estate, all the wealth surrounding him, didn't belong to the Darrows anymore. It belonged to the woman he was publicly shaming. A heavy silence blanketed the cathedral. People exchanged whispers like sharp knives slicing through the air. I knew she was after his money. Poor Calum. He needs to be careful. She should be grateful he even considered marrying her. Every word sank into Leora's skin, burning her from the inside out. Calum's mother looked triumphant. She sat with her back straight, chin high, lips curled into a satisfied smirk, as though the humiliation of another human being was a family tradition worth celebrating. Leora took the pen with trembling hands. She could have refused. She could have walked away, watched the Darrow dynasty crumble under the weight of their own arrogance. She could have revealed everything, ended the story before it even began. But she didn't. She signed, not because she agreed, not because she believed she was being treated fairly. She signed because she wanted the wedding to proceed. She wanted to believe love could survive even this. She wanted to give Calum one more chance, hoping the storm would pass and the man she loved would return to her. When she handed the paper back, her smile was gone. Her innocence was cracked. Her heart was bleeding, but her dignity remained. The ceremony resumed, but the magic was dead. The vows felt hollow. The ring felt cold against her skin. Calum's kiss tasted of guilt, not passion. As the guests applauded weakly, Leora stood beside her new husband, feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her entire life. What no one knew, what even Calum could not have imagined, was that the ink she had signed upon would soon mean nothing. The prenup was a shield meant to protect the Darrow legacy, but their legacy had never truly belonged to them, and the woman they feared would steal their wealth was, in fact, the rightful owner of everything they were desperate to protect. The storm had only begun. The celebration that followed was a dazzling spectacle, one that should have marked the beginning of a joyful life together. Champagne flowed like liquid gold, chandeliers glimmered overhead, and the string quartet played melodies so soft they felt like silk brushing against the senses. Guests chatted animatedly, taking photos, complimenting each other's attire, admiring the lavish decor of the reception hall. But within this glittering world of wealth and pretense, Leora felt herself slowly sinking beneath an invisible weight. She walked beside Calum, her hand resting lightly on his arm as they moved through the crowd, greeting well-wishers. Every smile she offered was a strain. Every breath felt shallow. The sting of the prenup incident hovered like a shadow behind her eyes, refusing to fade. She felt as though she were navigating a dream, beautiful on the surface, but distorted and hollow beneath. Calum sensed the distance in her silence. He squeezed her hand gently as they approached a group of his business associates. "Smile," he whispered. "They're watching." His words weren't tender, they were pressured, a reminder to keep up appearances. And so Leora obeyed, curving her lips upward even though her heart remained bruised. "Congratulations, Mrs. Darrow," one woman chimed, her tone sugary sweet but her eyes sharp. "What a stunning ceremony. And how brave you were, signing that prenup so gracefully. Not many women would agree so easily." A few guests nearby chuckled lightly. Leora felt her chest tighten. She murmured a polite thank you, though the words scraped against her throat. Before she could slip away, an older man with a booming voice interjected. Yes, very sensible decision," he said approvingly. "The Darrow fortune is no small matter. Smart thinking on Calum's part. Protecting his assets, you understand." Her cheeks burned with shame, but she kept the mask firmly in place. "Of course," she replied softly. Calum shifted uncomfortably, offering a forced smile, but he didn't correct them. He didn't reassure her. He didn't defend her dignity. He simply allowed the narrative to continue that she was a potential threat to his wealth, that the prenup had been a necessary safeguard. It was in that moment that Leora realized something painful. Caleb didn't see how deeply he had hurt her. He didn't understand the humiliation she carried, and part of him he hadn't confronted believed what others said. He believed she needed to be controlled. As the night progressed, Leora drifted from conversation to conversation like a ghost caught in the current. Everywhere she turned, she felt the stares, some curious, others judgmental, most condescending. She recognized the expression in their eyes, patronizing pity mixed with thinly veiled suspicion. To them, she was a girl who had married upward, a girl who should be grateful for the chance, a girl whose presence in this elite world was tolerated, not embraced. She excused herself to the restroom, her breath trembling as she pushed open the door. The silence inside enveloped her like a fragile cocoon. She leaned against the sink, gripping the marble edge, fighting the tears threatening to spill. Her reflection stared back, beautiful but wounded, strong but shaken. Why did he do that? She whispered to herself. Why didn't he trust me? The door creaked open, breaking her solitude. It was the head housekeeper, Mama Razi, a warm, middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a familiar gentleness. She had known Leora since childhood, though Leora was certain Mama Razi did not recognize her as the little girl who used to wait for her mother near the servants' quarters. "My dear," Mama Razi said softly, placing a comforting hand on Leora's arm. "Are you all right?" Leora forced a steady breath. "Yes, I'm fine, just overwhelmed." Mama Razi shook her head gently. "You are not fine. I saw your face when he gave you that paper." Her voice carried honesty stripped of judgment. No bride should sign something like that on her wedding day. It was wrong. The sincerity in her words cracked something inside Leora. Her voice quivered. "It hurt, more than I thought it would." Mama Razi's gaze warmed with sympathy. "You have a good heart. I see it in your eyes. Don't let anyone dim that." Leora swallowed hard. "Thank you." Mama Razi hesitated, then added in a low voice, "If you ever need someone to talk to, I am here." As the housekeeper exited, Leora wiped her eyes and forced her breathing to steady. She didn't have time to fall apart, not tonight. She adjusted her veil, fixed her mascara, and prepared to step back into the storm. Later, after the reception wound down and the last of the guests departed, Leora and Caleb retreated to the bridal suite. The room was breathtaking, rose petals scattered across the floor, candles flickering in warm pools of light, champagne chilling on a crystal-trimmed table. It should have felt romantic. It should have felt safe. Instead, the tension between them was suffocating. Caleb removed his jacket and loosened his tie. "You were quiet tonight," he commented casually, as though nothing unusual had happened. Leora's voice was soft but steady. "You humiliated me." Caleb froze. "What?" She turned to face him fully. "The prenup. Why did you do it like that? Why on the altar? Why in front of everyone?" He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "My mom insisted that you sign before the vows. She said it was the proper time. I just followed her advice." "Your mother's advice?" Leora asked, bitterness creeping into her voice. "This was our wedding, Caleb, not a business deal." "I know," he said quickly. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. You signed it anyway, so I thought. Because I didn't want to ruin the wedding." Her chest trembled, "But that doesn't mean I wasn't hurt." He walked toward her, reaching for her hands, but she stepped back. "Leora, I love you," he insisted. "This was just precaution. You know my family's situation. You know how my mother worries about appearances and what about your worries?" She interrupted. "Do you trust me? Or do you think I'm here to take something from you?" His silence was the answer, a silence that cut deeper than any accusation. Leora turned away, her chin trembling. "I trusted you, completely. But today, you didn't stand with me. You didn't protect me." Caleb exhaled shakily. "I'm trying, Leora. You have to understand my family is complicated. There are expectations, responsibilities. I can't just ignore them." She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. "And I'm not part of those expectations." He reached for her again, but she retreated to the window, looking out at the sprawling estate shimmering beneath the moonlight. The irony twisted like a knife. He believed she needed protection from his wealth, yet he lived his life in the middle of her inheritance. He didn't know. Not yet. So she swallowed her pain. She steadied her voice. "I just need some time." Caleb hesitated before nodding. "Okay, I understand." But he didn't. That night, as Caleb fell asleep beside her, Leora lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her wedding night wasn't filled with tenderness or joy. It was filled with regret, disappointment, and a fragile thread of hope she wasn't sure she could still hold on to. The estate walls felt heavy around her, like memories waiting to resurface, like truths waiting to be revealed. She belonged to this place in ways Caleb could never imagine. One day, he would know. One day, everyone would know. But tonight, she lay quietly in the dark, trying to protect the last fragments of her heart. In the days that followed the wedding, the estate felt different to Leora, alive in ways she had never noticed before. Every corridor, every ornamental vase, every chandelier seemed to watch her with silent recognition, as though the very walls whispered memories of her mother. It was strange returning here as the lady of the house when she had once walked these same floors as the daughter of a housekeeper, waiting patiently in back rooms while her mother finished her work. Now she moved through the mansion not as a child lost in shadows, but as a woman carrying a secret powerful enough to uproot everything. Yet the tension between her and Caleb lingered like frost that refused to melt. On their first morning as newlyweds, Leora stepped out into the hallway, hoping a walk would clear her mind. She had barely taken 5 steps when she noticed 2 maids whispering at the corner. They were young, probably new hires, and their hushed voices were urgent. "She looked devastated yesterday. I would have walked out if it were me," one whispered. "But she signed anyway," the other replied. "I think she's stronger than she looks." They froze when they saw Leora, bowing quickly before hurrying away. Strong. The word echoed bitterly in her mind. Strength shouldn't have been required on her wedding day, yet she had needed it more than ever. She walked toward the main staircase, her fingers brushing against the polished wooden railing. This was the same railing her mother polished for hours each week. Leora paused, her heart tightening as she remembered the way her mother hummed softly, her hands moving expertly along the grain. "Mama, I wish you were here," she thought mournfully. As she descended the stairs, she noticed something else, an odd pattern in the way the staff treated her. They weren't just respectful, they were reverent, unusually so. In the kitchen, the chef insisted she sit while he brewed her tea personally. The housemaids rushed to open doors before she reached them. Even the groundskeepers nodded deeply when she passed, almost bowing. It didn't feel like the polite service offered to a bride entering a wealthy family. It felt like something deeper, like loyalty. But loyalty to what? Or to whom? During lunch, she joined Caleb and his mother in the lavish dining room. The table stretched so long it felt like a bridge between enemies, not family. Caleb seemed distracted, scrolling through his phone, while Isolde maintained her usual posture, stiff-backed, chin raised, judgment radiating from her like a second perfume. Leora took a seat quietly. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Isolde spoke first. "You'll need to attend the Darrow Foundation luncheon this Saturday. As Caleb's wife, it's important you present yourself properly." Leora kept her tone polite. "Of course, I'll be there." Isolde's eyes narrowed slightly, searching for a weakness. "And the prenup? I trust there are no lingering issues?" Leora felt her stomach knot. She kept her voice steady. "I signed it, didn't I?" "And wisely," Isolde replied with a smug smile. "It shows you understand your place." Caleb glanced up, frowning. "Mother, that's enough." Isolde waved her hand dismissively. "I'm only pointing out the importance of maintaining security. Wealth attracts opportunists." Leora stared at her fork, gripping it tightly to keep her composure. If only she knew the irony of her words. Suddenly, the butler entered the room, bowing respectfully. "Madam, Miss, there's an issue in the West Wing that requires attention." Isolde huffed impatiently. "Handle it yourself." Actually, he said cautiously, glancing at Leora, it concerns her. The older woman blinked, confused. Leora looked up as well. Me? Yes, madam, the butler replied. It appears the staff discovered a locked room with your name on the registry. Leora's breath caught. She didn't have a registry. She had never created one. Yet something deep in her memory stirred gentle whispers of her mother telling her about a room she should never enter. Before Isolde could protest, Leora stood. I'll go have a look. Calem rose with her. I'm coming too. Isolde followed reluctantly, alarm flashing briefly in her eyes. The staff led them through the west wing, a quieter part of the mansion rarely used by the Darrows. The air grew cooler, the hall narrower. Paintings along the walls depicted the estate's history. Lush gardens, old owners, gatherings from generations past. And then, they reached a heavy oak door sealed with an antique brass lock. There, the butler said. We found it while cleaning. It was hidden behind an unused tapestry. The engravings match this, madam. He handed Leora a small bronze key with her initials LM, carved elegantly along the shaft. Her fingers trembled as she held it. Isolde's expression twisted in confusion. Calem looked from the key to his wife, bewildered. How is there a room with your initials? Calem asked gently. I don't know, Leora murmured. But she did know. Deep down, she knew this had something to do with her mother and Elias Warren. Slowly, she inserted the key and turned it. The lock clicked open. The door creaked as it swung inward, revealing a room frozen in time. Dust motes drifted across soft sunlight, filtering through old curtains. A faint scent lavender, her mother's favorite, lingered in the air. Inside were simple furnishings, a wooden chair, a sewing machine, a trunk, and shelves lined with journals. Leora stepped inside on unsteady feet. She recognized everything. This was her mother's room, not the cramped quarters assigned to servants. This was private, personal, hidden, a sanctum carved for someone cherished, someone trusted. Isolde frowned. What is this place? Why does it exist? The butler answered, looking uneasy. This wing was closed off years ago, before even you moved in, Madame Darrow. Calem turned to Leora. Why are your initials on the key? She swallowed hard. Memories flashed before her, her mother whispering stories of kindness from a man named Elias, the owner who treated her with respect unlike others, the man Leora never met but who had shaped her fate. I think this room belonged to my mother, she whispered. Isolde's face contorted. Impossible! A housekeeper wouldn't be given a private room. Leora's voice remained steady. She wasn't just a housekeeper. Not to Elias. Calem furrowed his brows. What does that mean? Before she could explain, her eyes fell upon the trunk in the corner. She knelt before it, lifting the lid slowly. Inside were neatly folded clothes, embroidered cloths, a photo of Leora as a child, and a sealed envelope with her name written in her mother's delicate handwriting. Her breath hitched. She opened it. Inside was a note. My Leora, if you're reading this, then the time has come for the truth. You are more than you know. This estate, this home was built not just of bricks, but of promises. Elias loved you as his own granddaughter, and he made sure you would never be left unprotected. The inheritance is yours. I kept this room for you. One day, you will walk these halls not as a servant's daughter, but as the rightful heir. Leora's vision blurred with tears. She clutched the letter to her chest as her heart broke open in a storm of grief, love, and revelation. Behind her, Calem stared wide-eyed. Isolde appeared pale, her confidence cracking for the first time. What inheritance? Calem whispered, horrified but awestruck. Leora wiped her tears, her voice trembling. The estate, she said quietly. My mother didn't die without leaving something behind. Elias Warren left everything to her, to us. The room fell silent. The truth had begun its ascent from the shadows. But this was only the beginning. The days after discovering her mother's secret room unfolded like a slow-moving storm, building tension with every hour. Leora felt as if she were living in a house full of echoes, echoes of her mother's footsteps, her soft singing, her whispered warnings. Each time she passed the West Wing, she felt drawn back to that hidden room, the place her mother had preserved like a time capsule waiting to be opened. And the more she explored its contents, the clearer everything became. Her life had never been as small or insignificant as the Darrows believed. But with truth came responsibility, and with responsibility came danger. Caleb had barely spoken since they uncovered the room. He kept watching Leora from across hallways and breakfast tables, curiosity wrestling with uncertainty in his eyes. He wanted to ask questions, she could feel them simmering beneath his silence, but pride held him back. Pride and something else, fear. He didn't know whether the truth would crumble everything he had been taught to believe. On the third day, Leora returned alone to her mother's room. She sat cross-legged on the floor with the trunk open beside her, sorting through stacks of documents, old letters, and journals. Each journal was filled with her mother's handwriting, elegant, steady, patient. Her mother wrote about Elias Warren with reverence. He had treated her as an equal, valued her wisdom, trusted her with decisions about the estate. He had no heirs, no bloodline to continue his legacy. So he had chosen a Benny, chosen her out of respect, not out of romance, chosen her because she was the only person who had shown him unwavering kindness in a lonely, wealthy life. Leora read the final journal entry several times. I fear the Darrows grow bolder. Elias is gone, and they want control of everything. I must protect Leora. I must keep her hidden from their greed. One day, the truth will be hers. The warning sank into Leora like a stone. Had the Darrows truly pressured her mother to her breaking point? Had they feared Elias's decision so much that they pushed her out silently, cruelly hoping to erase her existence? Her hands tightened around the journal. She needed answers. Later that afternoon, Leora met with Cato Mirembe, the lawyer who had finalized the inheritance years ago. She requested the meeting quietly, in the far corner of the estate's garden where prying eyes couldn't linger. Cato arrived with his usual calm presence, dressed impeccably in a charcoal suit despite the warm weather. His voice remained steady as he bowed his head in respect. Madam Leora, it has been many years. Too many, she agreed. I need clarity. Everything my mother left behind. I want to understand it all. Everyone, Cato hesitated. Are you certain? Once you fully step into your inheritance, you cannot go back. Secrets protected for years will surface. I'm ready, she said, though her heart trembled. I've been ready since the day Caleb humiliated me. Cato studied her expression. Then allow me to explain everything. He detailed how Elias had intentionally kept the estate under a private trust, separate from the Darrow family. The Darrows had always believed they would one day control it, but Elias had never trusted them. He believed they were too obsessed with maintaining power and image. So he had built safeguards, legal structures, ensuring the estate would pass to a Benny and her only child, Leora. What about the Darrows' influence? She asked. Cato sighed. They tried to interfere. They pressured the trustees. They questioned your mother's legitimacy. They insulted her behind closed doors. But legally, they had no claim. Elias made sure the estate would be beyond their reach entirely. Leora's pulse quickened. Did they hurt her? I cannot say for certain, Cato replied carefully. But I know she feared them. She believed they could make life difficult if they knew how much she had been entrusted with. Leora's breath shook. Her suspicions grew sharper. Cato continued. As of now, you are the legal owner of the entire Warren estate. Every acre, every asset, every historical archive. Nothing is tied to the Darrow family. They are merely occupants. The truth was overwhelming. She owned everything, and yet they had treated her as though she was beneath them. How much does Caleb know? Cato asked quietly. Leora looked away. Nothing. Cato arched a brow. You married him while hiding the truth? He married me while believing lies about me, she countered. He forced me to sign a prenup to protect wealth that wasn't even his. Cato's expression darkened with disappointment. That is deeply unfortunate, madam. Leora nodded. I didn't tell him because I wanted our marriage to start with love, not power. But now, I don't know what we have anymore. Cato's voice softened. When you are ready, I will finalize the public transfer of ownership. But the moment we do so, everything changes. The Darrows will no longer hold any authority here. Leora inhaled slowly, feeling a storm rising in her chest. Thank you, Cato. I need time. He bowed again and left her alone among the garden roses her mother once tended with her own hands. As the evening settled in, the mansion felt strangely heavy. Leora walked through the halls, her footsteps echoing in eerie silence. She passed portraits of former owners, then paused in front of one she had seen many times before. Elias Warren, standing tall beside the entrance to the estate. She studied the painting intently. Elias's eyes held warmth, almost recognition. She wondered how her life would have been different if she had known him when he was alive. Leora, she startled at Calem's voice behind her. She turned to find him approaching, hands in his pockets, concern etched across his face. I've been looking for you, he said softly. You've been distant. I've had a lot on my mind, she replied. Calem nodded slowly, stepping closer. I know things haven't been easy since the wedding. I've been trying to understand. Understand what? Leora asked, her voice sharper than intended. He hesitated. Why you were so hurt about the prenup. I didn't mean to embarrass you. He exhaled. My mother said. Leora closed her eyes. Stop right there. That's the problem, Calem. Everything you've done has been because your mother said so. That's not fair. It is fair, she insisted, because you didn't defend me. Not once. Not when your family mocked me. Not when people called me a gold digger. Not even when your mother said I wasn't worthy. His jaw tightened. Leora, I love you, but I also have responsibilities. My family, your family does not own you, she said quietly, unless you let them. The silence between them swelled. Calem swallowed hard. You've changed since we found that room. You're hiding something. Leora felt her pulse spike. I'm not hiding anything. I'm trying to understand the truth about my mother. You know more than you're saying, he murmured. And I'm your husband. I deserve to know if something is going on. Husband. The title felt heavy on her tongue. He was her husband, yes, but not yet someone she could trust with the truth, not when he had shown her his weakest side so publicly. Leora stepped away from him. When I'm ready, I'll tell you. Calem's expression slipped into hurt frustration. Don't shut me out. I'm not your enemy. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Then stop acting like one. She walked past him, leaving him alone in the dimly lit hall. As the night stretched on, Leora returned once more to her mother's room. She sat on the floor again, holding the letter against her heart. The estate belonged to her. But before she could claim it, she needed to decide something much more complicated. What would become of her marriage? Outside the window, thunder rumbled. The storm was coming, and no one, not even the Darrows, could stop what was about to unfold. The mansion always had a quiet hum, distant footsteps, murmured conversations among staff, the faint clinking of china from the kitchens, but over the following days, that hum shifted into something sharper. There was a subtle tension rising inside the walls, as if the estate itself sensed a secret stirring beneath its floors. Calem felt it too. He found himself walking hallways he once ignored, noticing glances he had never paid attention to, catching whispers that seemed to stop the moment he approached. Everywhere he went, the staff behaved differently around Leora. They greeted her with unusual warmth, almost reverence. When she entered a room, they straightened their backs. When she spoke, their eyes softened with an unexpected familiarity. It ate at him in a way he couldn't explain. One morning, Calem stood at the kitchen entrance, observing quietly as Leora chatted with the chef. She was laughing, a small, soft laugh he had heard less and less lately. The chef beamed at her like a proud uncle. A housemaid placed a warm shawl over Leora's shoulders before she stepped out onto the terrace, fussing over her with genuine concern. Calem frowned. Why were they treating her like someone important, more important than him? He stepped into the kitchen. The staff immediately straightened, their smiles fading into polite neutrality. He wasn't sure which bothered him more, their respect for Leora or the distance they showed him. "Is something going on?" Calum asked, crossing his arms. The chef froze. "Sir, you've all been attentive to my wife." The maids exchanged glances. No one spoke. Calum's tone hardened. "If there's something I should know, say it." Mama Razi, the head housekeeper, stepped forward carefully. "We are simply showing her the respect she deserves." I won. His jaw tightened. "Because she's my wife?" Mama Razi hesitated. "Because of who she is." He narrowed his eyes. "And who, exactly, do you think she is?" Before she could reply, Leora re-entered the kitchen through the terrace door. "Is everything okay?" Calum straightened, forcing a smile. "Yes, just asking a question." But Leora sensed the stiffness in the room. She glanced at the staff. They lowered their heads respectfully and dispersed. When they were alone, Calum asked, "Why do they treat you like that?" "I don't know," Leora said gently, though guilt tugged inside her. "Maybe because I'm new. That's not it." His voice was quiet, troubled. "It's like they already know you." Her breath hitched. She managed a soft, controlled tone. "Calum, they're just being kind." He studied her. His gaze was sharp enough to see through lies, but not deep enough to understand the truth. "Ever since we found that room," he said, "you've been different, holding things back, avoiding me." "Because I'm processing everything," she whispered. He stepped closer. "Then let me in. Whatever you found out, I want to help." But he didn't know the weight of what he was asking. Leora gently stepped back. "I'm not ready yet." Calum swallowed his frustration. "You're my wife. I deserve the truth." She stiffened. "You also believed I'd betray you for money." He flinched. "Leora, trust is earned, Calum." Her voice was soft but unyielding. "And you broke it." He opened his mouth to argue, but the words died on his tongue. She wasn't wrong. Later that afternoon, Calum retreated to his father's old study, a place filled with leather-bound books, mahogany shelves, and the faint smell of old tobacco. He sat heavily in the chair behind the desk, rubbing his temples. His mind wouldn't stop racing. He thought back to the discovering of the room. The key, the initials, Leora's tears as she read her mother's letter. What did all of it mean? He reached for his phone, scrolling through contacts until he found a number. He hesitated, then dialed. "Mother," he said when Isolde answered. "We need to talk." Isolde arrived an hour later, sweeping into the study with her usual regal composure. She took one look at Calum's face and frowned. "What's wrong?" Calum didn't mince words. "The room we found. It belonged to Leora's mother." "So?" she snapped. "Servants had rooms. What of it?" "This one wasn't a servant's room." He leaned forward. "It had personal belongings, journals, letters, and—" Isolde's voice sharpened. "And what?" Calum hesitated. "It looked like Elias Warren held her in high regard, much higher than we knew." Isolde's expression flickered, something dark crossing her eyes. Elias was eccentric. He showed inappropriate favoritism to that woman. Everyone knew that. Calum looked up sharply. "What do you mean, inappropriate?" "Nothing," Isolde said quickly. "Just that he trusted her more than he should have." "Mother," Calum's voice lowered dangerously. "What aren't you telling me?" She crossed her arms defensively. "Whatever he gave her, it was symbolic. Don't overthink it." Calum stared at her. For the first time in his life, he saw cracks in his mother's facade, something she was hiding. He didn't push further, but doubt began wrapping itself around his heart like thick vines. Later that evening, he went searching for Leora again. He found her in the courtyard, reading through another of her mother's journals. Moonlight fell over her gently, turning the pages silver. Her expression was soft, sad, but determined. He watched her for a moment, feeling something twist painfully inside him. He remembered the first time he saw her braids falling loosely over her shoulders, her smile shy but warm. She had captivated him instantly, not because she was wealthy, not because she came from a prestigious background, but because she felt genuine. He once told himself he would give her the world. Yet here he was, scrambling to understand the world she came from. He approached quietly. Leora. She closed the journal gently and looked up at him. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low. She nodded, but her guard was still up. Caleb sat beside her on the stone bench. For a long moment, neither spoke. The fountain nearby trickled softly, filling the silence between them like an unspoken truth. Finally, he said, "I feel like I'm losing you." Her breath caught. "Caleb, I know I hurt you," he continued, voice cracking. "I know I should have protected you. I should have defended you. But I'm trying to understand everything, and I feel like every step I take, you move further away." Her eyes softened but remained cautious. "You're not losing me. I'm just rebuilding myself." After what happened, Caleb lifted his eyes to hers. "If there's something I need to know, something important, please tell me." Leora hesitated, gripping the journal tightly. The night breeze carried the scent of roses, the same flowers her mother once tended. "I found things in my mother's room," she said quietly. "Things that change everything." His heart pounded. "What things?" "Secrets," she swallowed. "About the estate. About why my mother feared your family." Caleb's breath stopped. "Feared? Why?" But she shook her head. "Not yet. I still need time." He felt frustration rising, but he swallowed it. If he pushed too hard now, he might shatter what little trust remained. "All right," he whispered. "I'll wait." Leora exhaled shakily. "Thank you." He reached for her hand, and after a long pause, she let him hold it. For the first time since the wedding, they sat in silence that wasn't hostile. It was fragile, careful, searching. But the shadows of the estate watched them closely. And in the rooms above them, buried secrets continued to shift, waiting for the day they would tear the Darrow family apart. The tension between them wasn't ending. It was only beginning. Rumors spread through the Darrow household like wildfire, carried by hushed whispers and nervous glances. By the end of the week, something in the air felt unmistakably wrong, thick, restless, and crawling beneath the surface like an unseen threat. Even Leora could sense it, though she barely understood its source. But the truth was simple. The Darrow family was in trouble, and trouble had a way of revealing the true nature of people. It began subtly. Papers scattered across Caleb's desk, phone calls answered in clipped tones, meetings that ran late into the night. Leora observed him from a distance, watching a tension coil inside him like a knot he couldn't untie. She wanted to ask, but their relationship still felt too fragile. One wrong question and everything might shatter again. One evening, however, the truth forced its way out. Leora walked into the study and found Caleb pacing back and forth, his jaw tight, his fists clenched. Documents lay strewn everywhere, financial reports, legal letters, printed emails. He didn't notice her at first. "Caleb," she said softly. He froze, then turned with the look of a man trying and failing to keep himself together. "Leora, I didn't hear you." Very teen, she stepped closer. "What happened?" He hesitated. Then, with a heavy sigh, he sank into the leather chair behind the desk. "My family's investments, they've collapsed." Her eyes widened. "Collapsed? How?" Caleb rubbed his temples. "Bad decisions, risky ventures. Mother refusing to listen. The board warned her, but she pushed for expansion anyway. Now everything is crashing down around us." Leora's heart ached. She knew the Darrows valued wealth as much as air. Losing that would be like losing identity. "Is it serious?" she asked. Caleb looked up, expression grim. "Serious enough that my mother wants me to ask you for help." Leora blinked. "Help? How can I help?" He swallowed hard, as if the words were painful. "She thinks your family might have something saved, that maybe you could contribute to stabilizing the situation." Leora stared at him in stunned silence. "Caleb, you know I grew up with nothing." His cheeks flushed with shame. "I know. I told her that, but she doesn't believe it. She keeps insisting you must have something hidden away, some inheritance, some savings." A mixture of confusion, anger, and bitter irony twisted through Leora's chest. "If only they knew the truth," Caleb continued, frustration seeping into his voice. She said you should prove your loyalty by supporting the family in a moment of crisis. Leora stiffened, heat rising behind her eyes. Prove my loyalty? By giving your family money? Calum rubbed the bridge of his nose. I told her you can't, but she's not listening to me. She thinks you're refusing out of selfishness. Leora exhaled, forcing herself to remain calm. Calum, do you think that too? His eyes snapped open in shock. No! Leora, how could you even— Because sometimes, she interrupted softly, it feels like you see me the way she trained you to see the world. Calem's face fell. Leora, but she turned away, swallowing the hurt swelling in her chest. Your mother has never liked me. She will blame me for anything. Calum stood abruptly, walking toward her. I'm not blaming you. I swear. This is my family's mess, not yours. She didn't respond. She couldn't. The irony was cruel. She owned the estate they lived in, yet they begged her for imaginary money. The next morning, the situation escalated. Isolde barged into Leora's room without knocking, her eyes blazing with indignation. You, she snapped, need to contribute to the Darrow family. Immediately. Leora blinked, startled. Madame Darrow, Calum told me what happened, but I really don't have. Oh, please, Isolde sneered, waving a dismissive hand. You expect me to believe a girl like you didn't receive anything from that mother of yours? Leora's stomach twisted. My mother worked to survive. She— Yes, Isolde interrupted. I know the story. The poor housekeeper who died tragically. Spare me the tears. Leora felt something inside her tremble, not fear, but rage. Rage she'd kept buried since the wedding. You're asking me to give you money I don't have, Leora said firmly. Even if I did, you have no right. Isolde leaned in, voice sharp as a blade. If you won't support this family, then don't expect us to support you. Marriage is partnership, and right now, we are drowning. Leora stepped back, breath unsteady. Calum is my partner. You are not. Isolde's eyes flashed with contempt. Everything Calum has, everything he is, comes from this family, my family. Without us, he is nothing. Your marriage is nothing. 24. The words pierced Leora like shards of glass. She forced herself to remain calm. I'm sorry for your situation, but insulting me will not change anything. Isolde scoffed, turning on her heel. Ungrateful girl, just like your mother. The door slammed behind her. Leora stood rooted to the floor, heart pounding, her pulse hot with anger. She had endured enough humiliation, first the prenup, then the whispers, now this. But her mother's memory, that was sacred, and Isolde had crossed a line. That evening, Leora retreated to her mother's secret room, seeking comfort in familiarity. She read Elias's letters again, tracing her mother's hopes and fears, her loyalty and heartbreak. She felt stronger with every word, like she was growing roots into the truth. When she finally emerged, her resolve solidified. She stepped into the main hallway and found Calum waiting. He looked exhausted. Worry etched across his face. Mother told me what she said. Leora crossed her arms. And I'm sorry, he said quietly. She was wrong. She's scared. She's lashing out. Scared people reveal their true selves, Leora murmured. Calum exhaled shakily. We're falling apart, Leora. Everything my father built, slipping through our fingers. And you want me to fix it? She asked, her voice steady. No, he said, shaking his head quickly. I want you with me. I want us to face this together. Her heart cracked at the sincerity in his voice, but pain still weighed heavy between them. Calum, she whispered, if I tell you something big, will you listen? Really listen? He stepped forward, his eyes locked onto hers. Yes, but she hesitated. This wasn't the right moment. Not yet. Instead, she reached for his hand, holding it gently. I'm here. I'm not abandoning you. But I need space to understand everything before I make any decisions. He nodded, swallowing hard. I'll wait. But behind his eyes, doubt still flickered like a trembling candle. And as Leora walked away, She knew the truth was no longer something she could keep hidden much longer. The Darrow family was spiraling. The estate was watching. The staff knew more than they let on. And soon, the storm would break wide open. The following days felt like walking through a minefield, quiet at first glance, but trembling beneath the surface with the threat of explosions. The estate had always been vast, beautiful, and meticulously organized, but now it carried a strange weight, as though every hallway held a secret waiting to burst free. Leora felt it constantly. Whispers followed her. Staff members exchanged anxious glances. Even the air felt tight, charged with anticipation. But the truth didn't fully materialize until one rainy afternoon. Leora had been sorting through her mother's belongings in the hidden room again, sitting across from the old trunk filled with journals, letters, and documents. She'd read each one carefully, but every time she thought she'd reached the end of the mystery, a new layer revealed itself. Now, something pressed at her, an instinct she couldn't ignore. She noticed one journal she hadn't opened before, a thin, leather-bound book tucked beneath a stack of linens. The cover felt worn beneath her fingers. When she opened it, the first page revealed a date 1 week before her mother died. Her hands trembled as she read the words written in her mother's careful, emotional script. "I fear the Darrows have found out more than they should. Elias's final will has been activated, and someone informed them that he left everything to me. They confronted me yesterday. They threatened me. They said I was stealing from them even though they know the truth." Leora gasped, heart pounding. Threatened. Her mother had been threatened. The entry continued. "I don't know what they are capable of. They are desperate. They have controlled this estate for so long, they cannot bear to lose it. Kalem's father tried to calm the situation, but his wife is relentless. I fear what she might do. For the first time, I worry for my safety, and for Leora's future." A lump formed in Leora's throat so large she struggled to breathe. Tears blurred her vision. She kept reading. "If something happens to me, it won't be an accident. Leora must know the truth, even if she learns it later. I pray she finds the strength to claim what is hers." Leora shut the journal, her entire body trembling. Her mother hadn't just died. She had been terrified, pushed to the brink by the Darrows, attacked by their greed, suffocated by their desperation. Whether or not they harmed her directly, they had certainly driven her to exhaustion, fear, and collapse. A surge of emotion crashed through Leora. Grief, rage, betrayal, heartbreak. It pulsed through her veins like fire, burning away any lingering hesitation. The truth demanded to be revealed, but not yet, not without the remaining pieces of the puzzle. She needed proof. As she wiped away her tears, Mama Razi suddenly appeared at the door. The housekeeper's face softened when she saw Leora in distress. "Child, you found her words, didn't you?" Leora looked up, startled. "You knew?" Mama Razi stepped inside slowly, her hands wringing nervously. "I didn't know what exactly she wrote, but I knew your mother was scared. We all saw it. The way Madame Darrow cornered her. The way she questioned her loyalty every day." Leora's voice quivered. "And no one helped her?" Mama Razi lowered her eyes, guilt lurking in their depths. "We were servants, and the Darrows were powerful. Speaking out would have meant losing our jobs or worse." Leora exhaled shakily, understanding yet still wounded. "My mother trusted you." "I know," Mama Razi whispered, "and I failed her. But let me help you now." Leora nodded, her breathing steadying. She needed allies now more than ever. Mama Razi continued. "There's something else your mother left behind. In her last weeks, she asked me to hold onto a box for you." Leora blinked. "A box?" Mama Razi beckoned her to follow. They walked through narrow halls, passing a corridor used only by staff. Mama Razi entered a small storage room and began moving old crates. Behind them was a locked drawer. She took out a key hidden inside her apron's lining and opened it. Inside was a small, intricately carved wooden box. This, Mama Razi said, was her last request to keep safe. Leora held her breath as she opened the box. Inside were several documents, sealed photographs, and a flash drive. She lifted one of the papers. It was a legal document stamped with Elias Warren's signature and seal. It stated, "Transfer of ownership of the Warren estate to Abeni Mbeki, and subsequently to her daughter, Leora Mbeki." Another document revealed bank account information and trust fund details, all under her mother's and her own name. The last item was a photograph. Leora's breath hitched when she saw it. Her mother stood beside Elias Warren, smiling. She had never seen this photo before. Elias's hand rested gently on her mother's shoulder, not possessive, not inappropriate, but warm and protective. Behind them was a handwritten note. "To my dear Leora, your mother's kindness saved my life. I leave this world knowing she will guide you through yours. This estate is your inheritance, not the Darrow's legacy. Remember that." A sob escaped Leora's throat. Her mother hadn't been a servant in the way the Darrows twisted the narrative. She had been trusted, valued, and loved in a way that transcended blood. Elias Warren had chosen her mother because he saw her goodness. He had chosen Leora because he believed she deserved a future better than the one the Darrows could ever offer. With trembling hands, Leora closed the box. "I need to show this to the lawyer," she said quietly. Mama Razi nodded. "He's waiting for your word." Leora turned to leave but paused. "Mama Razi, thank you for keeping this safe." The older woman's eyes filled with tears. "Your mother saved my job many times. I owed her that much." Leora returned to the main hall, her heart a storm of emotions. She clutched the box tightly, feeling its weight like the gravity of destiny itself. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. This was about justice, about her mother's truth, her dignity, her legacy. But as she approached the staircase, she spotted Calem's voice echoing from his father's study. The door was ajar, and curiosity pulled her closer. Calem stood inside, speaking urgently on the phone. She could only hear part of his words, but it was enough to reveal his turmoil. "I don't know what's happening. She knows something. The staff are acting strange. I feel like I'm being shut out of my own home." A pause. "No, Mother, I didn't say she's dangerous. I need to understand her. Something's going on and she won't tell me." Another pause. His voice cracked slightly. "She's my wife. I love her, but I don't know how to fix this if she doesn't trust me." Leora closed her eyes, her heart aching. She wanted to step in, to tell him everything. But she couldn't, not yet. The truth was too big, too explosive. She needed to reveal it on her terms, not driven by panic or pressure. She stepped back quietly, unnoticed, and retreated to her mother's room once more. The truth was now fully in her hands. The next step would change everything for her, for Calem, and for the Darrow legacy. One thing was certain: the days of hiding were coming to an end. The truth was rising like a tide that could no longer be held back, and soon, everyone, especially the Darrows, would be forced to face it. The Darrow family estate was known for its grandeur, towering archways, marble floors polished to a moonlit sheen, ornate chandeliers dripping with crystal. But beneath all of its elegance lay a history built on entitlement, pride, and a relentless obsession with status. These walls had witnessed countless celebrations, but none as explosive as the one about to unfold. It happened on a Saturday evening, during one of the Darrow family's largest gatherings of the year, the annual legacy dinner, a tradition Isolde Darrow cherished almost as much as her reputation. The event was meant to honor the family name, flaunt their influence, and quietly remind the city of their unshakable status. This year, however, the cracks in that facade were beginning to show. Financial troubles pressed upon every corner of the mansion. Whispers about the Darrow downfall were spreading in elite circles, and Isolde, desperate to maintain appearances, pushed the dinner forward with even greater extravagance: massive floral arrangements, rare wines, meticulously plated cuisine, all paid for with money she didn't have. Leora entered the grand ballroom with Calem beside her. Her gown shimmered subtly, elegant but understated. She carried herself with quiet grace, but inside she felt like a storm wrapped in silk. She clutched her mother's wooden box in her mind, even though she'd left it hidden safely in her room. Tonight, she intended to speak with Cato, to take the next steps toward revealing the truth. But fate had its own timing. As they moved through the ballroom, Leora could feel people staring. Some guests whispered behind jeweled masks of politeness. "That's the new wife. Isn't she the one who signed the prenup on stage? I heard the Darrows are broke. Poor girl married into sinking wealth." And others, with sharper tongues, "Maybe she'll bring them down. Or maybe she already has." Leora kept her chin lifted, refusing to let their words pierce her. Instead, she scanned the room for Cato, who had agreed to attend discreetly. She needed his legal perspective. She needed his support. But before she could find him, a cold voice sliced through the air. "There you are." Leora turned. Isolde Darrow stood behind her, tall and formidable in an emerald gown that matched the venom in her eyes. "I asked you to wear something more appropriate," Isolde said in a low, cutting tone. "This event reflects our family." Leora met her gaze evenly. "I'm wearing exactly what I chose." Isolde's nostrils flared. "You continue to embarrass us." Calum stepped between them. "Mother." "Enough." Isolde ignored him. She directed her next blow at Leora. "If you won't learn your place as my son's wife, then I'll make it clear for you tonight." Leora clenched her jaw. "My place? You mean as someone you expect to be silent?" Isolde smirked. "Silence would have suited you perfectly." Calum bristled. "Mother, there's a truth everyone here deserves to know," Isolde declared suddenly, loudly enough to draw attention. Calum stiffened. "Mother, don't." Isolde turned toward the crowd, lifting her champagne glass as if making a toast. Her voice carried elegantly, poison wrapped in silk. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us at the Darrow Legacy Dinner. Tonight, I wish to address something that has been a point of curiosity among our esteemed guests." Leora felt her heart drop. Calum whispered frantically, "Mother, stop." But Isolde continued, waving him off like a bothersome insect. "As you all know, my son recently married a charming young woman from humbler beginnings." A murmur spread through the crowd. Leora's heartbeat thudded like war drums. Isolde smiled coldly. "But what many of you may not know is that she refused to help our family in our moment of difficulty. Despite being welcomed into luxury far beyond what she has ever known, she still refuses to contribute anything of value financially or otherwise." Leora felt heat rush to her cheeks. Humiliation burned through her like fire. The crowd stared, eyes wide, hungry for scandal. Calum snapped, "Mother, that's enough." But Isolde merely raised her glass. "In other words, my son's loyalty is being taken advantage of. Marriage, as we all know, must be a partnership, and some partners," her eyes locked on Leora like sharpened arrows, "are simply not worthy." The ballroom erupted in whispers. Leora felt her lungs constrict. Her hands trembled. She had endured many blows, many insults, but this a public humiliation, crafted with precision and cruelty, was the final straw. The woman she used to be would have quietly endured. But she was no longer that woman. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "Are you finished?" The crowd gasped. Leora's tone wasn't loud, but it was razor sharp. Isolde blinked in surprise. "Excuse me? You've said your piece," Leora said calmly. "Now it's my turn." Calum stared at her with shock and awe. He had never seen her like this. Isolde scoffed. "Don't make a fool of yourself." Leora lifted her chin, fire in her eyes. "No, you've done that for all of us." Gasps spread through the room. Isolde's face flushed with rage. "You insolent! You humiliated me on my wedding day," Leora said, voice trembling but strong. "You forced your son to give me a prenup in front of hundreds of people. You insulted my mother, who is not here to defend herself. And now you shame me in front of your guests to hide the fact that your family's finances are collapsing." The guests went silent. Leora continued, her voice steady and resonant. "You say I brought nothing of value. You say I have no place. But the truth, Madame Darrow, is that you don't know me at all." Isolde sputtered, twisting with anger. "You." "Let me finish." Leora stepped closer. "You accuse me of refusing to help your family financially. But what you never considered is that I grew up with nothing to give. My mother raised me alone, without wealth, without privilege, without your family's cruelty disguised as superiority. Isolde's hands shook. You dare? Yes, Leora said firmly. Because I am done being silent. The crowd murmured with tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Leora continued. You say I'm not worthy. But the truth is, none of this wealth you cling to belongs to you. It never did. Isolde's face turned ghostly pale. Calem's eyes widened. Leora, what are you saying? Before she could answer, someone stepped into the circle of attention. Cato Mirembe. The lawyer bowed respectfully. Madam Leora, if I may. Leora nodded, giving him silent permission. Cato addressed the crowd in a calm, authoritative voice. My name is Cato Mirembe, legal executor of the Warren estate. I am here tonight on request from Madam Leora to finalize a transition that has been delayed for many years. He opened a leather folder. Isolde's breath hitched. No, what are you doing? Cato spoke clearly. The Darrow estate. This estate was never owned by the Darrow family. It was legally transferred upon Elias Warren's passing to his chosen heir, Abeni Mbeki. The room erupted. And upon the passing of Abeni Mbeki, Cato continued, raising his voice above the murmurs, the legal owner became her only child. He turned to Leora. Madame Leora Mbeki Darrow. The crowd froze. Isolde's glass slipped from her hand and shattered across the marble floor. Calem's mouth fell open. Leora, you own. Tears burned behind her eyes, but not from shame this time. From release. Yes, she owned everything. The empire the Darrows built their identity around. The wealth they used to lord over others. The estate where they humiliated her mother. It all belonged to her. And now, the truth stood exposed for the world to see. The ballroom descended into a stunned, suffocating silence so complete that Leora could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Faces around her shifted between disbelief, curiosity, and shock. A few guests whispered frantically, their voices trembling with excitement, as though they had just witnessed the opening scene of a scandalous drama. Others stared at Leora with newfound intensity, trying to reconcile the quiet woman they had dismissed with the revelation that now hung in the air like lightning splitting the night sky. Isolde Darrow stood frozen, her face drained of its imperious confidence. Her carefully maintained composure cracked, revealing something far uglier beneath. Fear. Calem turned toward Leora, his expression pale with confusion. His eyes searched her face, desperate for explanation, but overwhelmed by the collision of truth and betrayal. Leora, what is he talking about? You own the estate? Leora's breath trembled. She swallowed hard, holding Calem's gaze even though the weight of his shock pressed against her chest. Yes, Calem, it's true. I come. He stumbled back a step as if the ground beneath him had shifted. Why didn't you tell me? Her voice softened. Because I wanted to protect what little peace we had, and I didn't want our love, whatever love we had, to become entangled in money, or power, or the expectations of your family. Calem stared, stunned, speechless. His hands trembled at his sides. Isolde, however, erupted. This is a lie, she screeched, her voice slicing through the silence like shattered glass. This man is lying. We have owned this estate for generations, my husband's father, and his father before him. Cato raised a calm hand. With all due respect, Madame Darrow, that is not accurate. Records show that the Darrow family rented and managed the estate under Elias Warren's authority. Ownership was never legally transferred to your family. Isolde's lips twisted with fury. Nonsense. Elias would never have given everything to a servant, much less to her. Mama. Calem snapped, horrified. Stop. But Isolde didn't stop. She couldn't. Her pride had been struck, and beneath it, her fear roared desperately. This is absurd, a fraud, a scheme. She jabbed a shaking finger at Leora. You tricked my son into marrying you. You manipulated everyone. Enough, mother. Calem's voice thundered across the hall. Stop humiliating yourself. Isolde flinched at the tone. Calem had never raised his voice to her before. Cato opened the folder again, pulling out several documents. These are the official deeds, signed by Elias Warren and witnessed by 2 legal authorities. There are also letters, personally addressed to Abeni Mbeki, affirming her inheritance. If any guest wishes to verify them, you are welcome to do so. Gasps filled the room. A few bold guests stepped closer, craning to see the signatures. The evidence was undeniable. Isolde staggered backward, her breath coming in sharp, shallow bursts. No, this can't be. Calum ran a trembling hand through his hair. Leora, why? Why didn't you tell me? Why hide something this huge? Leora's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. She stepped forward, her voice steady yet fragile. Because when you love someone, you hope they love you not what you have. And I didn't want the estate, or the inheritance, or anything else to be the reason you looked at me differently. Calum's voice cracked. But I would never. You forced a prenup on our wedding day, she said gently. You didn't trust me with what you thought you had. How could I trust you with what I actually had? Calum looked as though she had struck him. His shoulders sagged, and guilt hollowed his eyes. I didn't know, he whispered. I didn't know my actions hurt you that deeply. You didn't ask, Leora replied sadly. Isolde surged forward again, fury overpowering her shame. This is still a deception. You've stolen everything that belongs to us. Cato cleared his throat. Actually, Madame Darrow, a portion of the estate's land was once purchased using Abeni's private funds to prevent foreclosure. If anything, the Warren estate saved the Darrows, not the other way around. Isolde's eyes bulged. Impossible. But everyone in the room could see she was unraveling. One guest whispered loudly, "So the girl they shamed was the true owner all along." Another added, "Isolde's been living on someone else's property for years." A ripple of judgment spread through the crowd, reversing the tide entirely. Leora no longer felt like prey. The room no longer worked against her. For the first time, she felt the ground tilt in her favor. Isolde stumbled back a step. Her voice broke. This is my life. Everything I've built. Everything I am. It was never yours, Cato said, not unkindly. It was entrusted to a woman your family mistreated. Leora inhaled shakily. She took a step toward Isolde, not with cruelty, but with dignity. My mother feared you, she said quietly. Her final journal entry spoke of your threats. She was terrified for me, for herself, and she hid the truth to protect us both. Isolde froze, her face filling with horror. The crowd leaned in. Leora continued, voice quivering with emotion. Whether or not you truly intended harm, your cruelty pushed her to her limits. She died carrying fear I can never erase. Tears pooled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She stood tall, claiming the space her mother never could. And now, Leora said softly, I am done being afraid. I will not hide. I will not be humiliated. And I will not be silent. The room erupted in murmurs, admiration, astonishment, respect. Isolde's knees buckled, and she sank into a chair, shaking violently. Her empire, her illusions, her control all shattered. Calum stepped forward, tears burning in his eyes. Leora, please, talk to me. I never wanted this. I didn't know. I didn't know anything. Leora looked at him, her heart aching. She loved him once, loved him deeply, but the fracture between them now seemed impossibly wide. Calum, she whispered, I needed you to see me, but you only ever saw what your mother told you to see. No, he pleaded. I see you now. I swear I see you. Do you? She asked softly. Or do you just see everything you're about to lose? He flinched again. Those words struck deeper than the truth itself. Silence fell once more. Heavy and decisive. This was the moment the balance shifted entirely, and nothing in the Darrow world would ever be the same again. The ballroom did not return to life for a long moment. The music had died. The chatter had fallen silent. Even the waiters, frozen mid-step with silver trays in their hands, stood like statues awaiting the next command of fate. All eyes remained fixed on the 3 figures at the center of the storm, Leora, Calum, and Isolde. But the one who now held the room, held all the power, was Leora. The revelation had landed like thunder. The shock still rippled across every face in the hall. Wealthy businessmen, crisp in their tuxedos, traded stunned glances. Their wives clutched jeweled shawls, whispering behind trembling fingers. To them, it was not merely gossip. It was history rewritten before their very eyes. The Darrow estate, the pride of their circle, belonged not to the Darrows, but to the girl they had pitied, mocked, and dismissed. A girl whose quiet gaze now pierced every corner of the ballroom. Cato stepped forward again, his voice unwavering. "With Madame Leora's permission, I will proceed with the formal announcements." Leora gave a small nod. He reached into his leather folder and withdrew a collection of gold-sealed envelopes. These documents finalize the final stage of ownership transfer. Once filed, public record will reflect the rightful owner. A murmur spread among the guests, a low hum of excitement, disbelief, and fear. For Isolde, it was the beginning of the collapse of everything she had ever built her identity upon. "No!" Isolde gasped, scrambling to her feet. Her hands trembled violently. "You can't do this. You hear me? You can't take my home, my legacy, my life." "Because," her voice cracked, raw and desperate, "this was never yours, Mother," Calum said hoarsely. Isolde spun toward him, eyes blazing with betrayal. "You ungrateful boy. Everything we have is because of what your father and I built." Calum swallowed hard. He had never seen his mother like this, unmasked, panicked, small. "What you believe we built was an illusion. One built on assumptions, on entitlement, on lies," Leora added softly. Isolde stepped back as though struck. Cato addressed the crowd again. "To clarify, Madame Leora has full, uncontested claim to the estate. The Darrow family has been residing here as occupants under a long-standing arrangement. Any further attempts to challenge the will have already been dismissed." Isolde let out a strangled cry. "This is impossible. Elias would never. Elias entrusted your mother-in-law because he trusted her heart." Cato finished calmly, "And he left everything to her daughter, who shares that same heart." Isolde shook her head violently, unable to process the truth. Then she turned her fury upon Leora like a blade. "You think you can take everything we built, everything I protected? You snake! You deceived my son, you deceived all of us." Leora met her gaze without flinching. "The only deception here is the one you created to pretend the world belonged to you." Isolde lunged a step forward, but Calem grabbed her arm. "Mother, stop! You're embarrassing yourself." "No, I'm fighting for my family," she screamed, wrenching free. "She wants to destroy us." Leora's voice remained calm, steady. "I have never wanted to destroy you, but I will no longer allow you to destroy me." Gasps spread across the hall. Calum stepped between them. His expression caught between two storms, the woman he loved and the mother who raised him. "Leora," he murmured. What happens now?" The question hung heavy in the air. Leora turned her gaze to him. His eyes, dark, wounded, and desperate, searched hers for a lifeline. But she could see the truth flickering behind them. He was afraid, not of losing wealth, but of losing her. She inhaled deeply, gathering courage from the memories of her mother, of Elias, of every moment she had been belittled, demeaned, underestimated. "What happens now?" she said gently. "Depends on whether you are capable of standing by me, not for what I own, but for who I am." Calum's breath caught. "I love you, Leora. I always have." "You loved me," she corrected softly. "But love without respect is just possession." His face fell. "I respect you. You forced me to sign a prenup in front of hundreds of people," she replied, pain flickering through her eyes. "You listened to your mother instead of to your heart. You saw me through her eyes. You doubted me when I needed you most." Calum's voice broke. "I was wrong." Leora nodded, a shadow of sadness crossing her expression. "I know. And now, everything must be rebuilt. If it can be." She stepped past him, turning toward the guests. Her voice rose not loud, but commanding. "Everyone here tonight has seen the truth. The Warren estate is now under my stewardship. This home, its land, its legacy, they are my responsibility. And I intend to honor the men and women who worked here with dignity, starting with transparency and fairness. A round of murmured approval spread across the hall. Several staff members, who had been silently watching from the edges, exchanged hopeful glances. Leora continued, "No one will be removed immediately. There will be time to transition, but changes will happen." Her eyes landed on Isolde, "and they will begin with integrity." Isolde's face contorted into something twisted by rage and desperation. "You can't throw us out! You wouldn't dare!" "I'm not throwing anyone out," Leora said softly. "But I will no longer be ruled by fear. Not by you, not by your expectations, not by your control." Isolde collapsed into a chair, sobbing silently, her empire reduced to dust. Cato cleared his throat. "With your permission, Madame Leora, I will begin informing the trustees." Leora nodded, but she wasn't finished. As she turned back to the crowd, her voice softened again, this time not with restraint, but with purpose. "My mother lived in the shadows of this estate," she said. "She worked, she sacrificed, she endured cruelty for the sake of survival. But she also left behind a legacy of compassion. That is what I wish to bring into this home. A legacy of fairness, of kindness, of truth." Applause erupted, soft at first, then growing into something powerful and sincere. Leora's chest tightened. Her mother deserved this moment, and though she couldn't be here to witness it, her presence filled the room. Calum approached hesitantly. "Leora, please, let me fix this. Give me a chance to earn back your trust." She looked at him, a man she once believed would be her future, a man who had broken her heart not through malice, but through weakness. Her voice trembled with emotion. "Calum, trust is not rebuilt with promises. It's rebuilt with action." "I'll do anything," he said softly. "Just don't shut me out." She searched his face, seeing the sincerity there. But sincerity wasn't enough. "Show me who you can be," she whispered. "Not who your mother made you." He nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. Leora exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the night finally settle. The truth was out. The world had shifted, and her life, her identity, was no longer buried beneath the Darrow family's shadow. For the first time, she stood fully in her mother's legacy, and the next chapter was hers to write. After the truth burst open like a rupture through the ballroom, the Darrow estate never returned to its former rhythm. The walls seemed to hum with new energy, an energy of shifting power, of long-hidden ghosts finally allowed to speak, of change moving through every corridor like an unstoppable wind. And in the center of that transformation stood Leora, carrying not only her mother's legacy, but the weight of decisions that would reshape countless lives. The morning after the revealing confrontation, the mansion awoke in uneasy silence. Servants walked softly, uncertain of what new rules might govern the household. The Darrow family's influence, once absolute within these walls, had evaporated overnight. Now everyone watched Leora with cautious awe, unsure whether she intended to rule with vengeance or with grace. Calum did not sleep. He spent the entire night pacing the balcony outside their room, his thoughts tangled and raw. The truth had shattered him. Not because of the wealth, it wasn't about the estate, but because the woman he had sworn to protect had been protecting herself from him all along. He understood now that her silence had been a shield, crafted out of necessity, shaped by his mother's cruelty. When Leora stepped out onto the balcony at sunrise, wrapped in a robe, her eyes still heavy with exhaustion, Calum stopped pacing. He stared at her, unsure whether he had the right to speak first. "Leora," he whispered. She didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched between them, as wide as the estate grounds and just as unmapped. Calum swallowed hard. "I know an apology isn't enough. I know I've failed you." She looked away. "You didn't fail me, Calum. You failed yourself. You let your mother's fears become your beliefs." His chest tightened. "I don't want to be that man anymore." Leora sighed softly. She believed him, part of her always would, but belief wasn't the same as trust. "You have to understand something," she said gently. "When you asked me to sign that prenup, it wasn't the paper that hurt. It was the message behind it. You believed I might betray you, and that belief, it broke something inside me. Calum stepped closer, keeping a careful distance. I was afraid of losing what I had, afraid of disappointing my mother, afraid of the world thinking I was foolish. Thank you, Lowe's. And what about losing me? She asked quietly. Calum's voice cracked. That fear came too late. They stood in painful silence. Finally, Leora spoke again. Last night changed everything, but it also showed me that truth, once revealed, can't be undone. It forces growth. Calum's eyes softened. I want to grow with you. Leora didn't answer. She walked past him, heading inside with a heaviness in her heart. She wasn't shutting him out, but she wasn't ready to let him in either. Later that morning, Cato arrived with formal documents for Leora's review. The meeting took place in the study, a room once dominated by the Darrows, now illuminated by a different presence entirely. Leora sat behind the desk, not with arrogance, but with quiet authority. Cato spread the papers across the polished surface. These are the official declarations, he explained. Once signed, the estate registry will be updated. You will assume full control. Leora glanced at the documents, each one stamped, sealed, and legally binding. The power in her hands felt immense, but she felt no excitement, only solemn responsibility. When this becomes public, she said carefully, the Darrows will be scrutinized. Cato nodded. Yes, but so will you. Leora inhaled deeply. Then I need to do this the right way. For my mother, for Elias, and for everyone who's lived under the Darrow shadow. She signed the papers. Each signature felt like closing a chapter her mother never got to finish. Shortly after, Mama Razi entered the room with tea. Her eyes sparkled with pride. Your mother would be so proud of you. Leora felt her heart soften. I wish she were here. Mama Razi placed a gentle hand over hers. She is. In every step you take, warmth spread through Leora's chest. For the first time in years, she felt her mother's presence not as memory or grief, but as strength. But not everyone accepted this shift with grace. That afternoon, Isolde demanded a private conversation. They met in the east parlor, where sunlight filtered faintly through gauzy curtains. Isolde looked smaller today, her usual fire replaced by fragile desperation. You're going to take everything from us, she said stiffly, though her voice trembled. Leora shook her head. No, but things will change, Isolde scoffed bitterly. Change? You call this change? You've decided to humiliate us in front of our friends, our colleagues. I didn't humiliate you, Leora said calmly. I defended myself, and my mother. Isolde's jaw clenched, but she didn't strike back. She couldn't. The power dynamics had shifted too drastically. Leora continued. You wanted control. That's all you ever wanted. Control over Calum, over the narrative, over me. But now you must face the consequences of that need. Isolde's eyes shimmered with tears she couldn't hide. You don't understand what it means to lose everything. Leora's expression softened, though she remained firm. I understand what it means to never have anything at all. Isolde's breath hitched because for the first time she realized she had never truly seen Leora. She had looked at her and seen only what she feared, never who she was. Leora continued. You and Calum may continue living here. For now, I won't tear your family apart, but from this moment, you will treat every person in this estate with dignity, including me. Isolde stared at her, stunned. She had expected vengeance. She didn't know what to do with mercy. We will discuss long-term arrangements later, Leora added. With that, she excused herself, leaving Isolde alone and shaken in the parlor. As evening fell, Leora spent time with the staff listening to concerns, learning about the estate's daily operations, understanding what was needed to restore fairness. The staff responded with relief, even loyalty. They had feared the Darrow's downfall would mean their dismissal. Instead, they found hope. But the person Leora avoided all day was Calum, and that weighed heavily on him. That night, he knocked on her door not loudly, but with the gentleness of a man afraid of breaking something already fragile. Leora, please, I need to talk to you. She hesitated before opening the door. Caleb looked tired, vulnerable, a far cry from the confident man she once loved so easily. "I know I've lost your trust," he began. "And maybe I don't deserve a second chance. But I want to be a better man. For myself, for you, for us." Leora's eyes softened, but she held herself steady. "Caleb, everything I've learned these past days has changed me. I can't go back to who I was, and I don't want you to go back to who you were either." He stepped closer, voice trembling. "I can change. I will change. Just give me time to prove it." Leora's breath caught. She could feel the sincerity pouring from him and the pain. "You have time," she said quietly. "But trust can't be demanded, Caleb. It must be rebuilt inch by inch." He nodded slowly, his eyes shining. "Then let me start now." Leora didn't answer with words. She simply nodded once, a small gesture that felt like opening a door not wide, but enough for light to enter. They stood there, two broken hearts facing each other in the dim glow of the hallway, both hoping for something better, something truer than what they had been. And though their future remained uncertain, one thing was clear. This was the beginning of something new. The days following the announcement felt like a slow unwinding of an old, tangled knot, one that had tightened around Leora's life since childhood. Now, with the truth revealed and the estate legally hers, the world felt both heavier and lighter, as if she were learning to breathe in a new atmosphere. But owning the estate didn't magically resolve the fractures in the relationships within it. If anything, it illuminated them more sharply. Caleb tried every day to show change. It wasn't grand gestures, not flowers, not gifts, not extravagant promises. It was the small things. The way he woke before dawn to help the staff carry supplies. The way he stayed late with the groundskeepers, learning their names and their stories. The way he hovered near Leora whenever she worked, not interrupting, just trying to understand her world instead of forcing her to enter his. It was effort, and it mattered, but the wound between them still lingered, unhealed. One evening, Leora stepped outside to the veranda overlooking the garden. The sky glowed with warm streaks of amber and gold, the sunset painting the estate in colors that felt almost surreal. The roses her mother once tended swayed gently in the breeze, their fragrance drifting through the air like a memory. She closed her eyes, imagining her mother's voice. "Your worth is yours, Leora, not theirs to define." Footsteps approached behind her. She didn't turn. She already knew the rhythm of his walk. Caleb cleared his throat softly. "You're out here early tonight." She nodded. "I needed to think." "About us?" he asked, voice cautious, fragile. "About everything," she replied. He stepped beside her, leaving a respectful distance. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything they had endured. Finally, Caleb spoke again. "Leora, I am truly sorry." She didn't interrupt this time. She let him speak. "I grew up thinking strength meant control, that protecting my family meant obeying my mother, following every tradition, every expectation. But that wasn't strength. It was fear. Fear of disappointing them. Fear of losing everything." He looked at her with raw honesty. "Fear of not being enough for you." She turned toward him, surprised. "Not enough for me?" He nodded. "You come from a place of quiet strength, something I didn't understand. I mistook my insecurity for caution, and I hurt you because of it." She looked away, her chest tightening. "You didn't just hurt me, you humiliated me." "I know," his voice cracked, "and I will regret that for the rest of my life. But I want to spend the rest of that life trying to make it right." Leora inhaled deeply, letting the evening air steady her. "Trust isn't rebuilt easily, Caleb. I'm willing to work for it," he said softly. She studied his face, the sincerity, the remorse, the vulnerability he had never shown before. But wounds didn't heal just because someone wished them to. So she asked the question she'd kept hidden in her heart. "If none of this, my inheritance, the estate, the money existed, if you knew me as the girl you believed I was, would you still fight for me like this?" Caleb stepped closer, closing the distance slowly, giving her room to step back if she needed to. She didn't. He cupped his hands lightly together, as if afraid to reach for her. I loved you long before I thought about our families. I loved you the moment you smiled at that little girl in the charity center and told her she was strong. I loved you the first time you held my hand during the rainstorm. I loved you even when I was too afraid to admit it. That love was real. Not the expectations, not the pressure. You. Leora felt her eyes sting, but she didn't look away. Then why didn't you protect me? His voice trembled. Because I didn't know how to protect someone stronger than me. A tear slid down her cheek. Caleb reached out slowly, gently brushing it away with the back of his hand, hesitant, as if asking permission. When she didn't pull away, he took a shaky breath. Leora, let me be worthy of you. The sincerity in his voice cracked her open in places she didn't know were still fragile. She stepped back, not out of rejection, but to gather herself. The wind rustled the roses behind them, the sound soft, almost like a whisper of approval. I don't want to lose you, Caleb added, voice raw. And I don't want to be my mother's son. Not anymore. I want to be a good man. Leora held his gaze for a long moment, searching for the truth in his words. And for the first time since their wedding day, she believed him. But belief wasn't enough. Action mattered. We'll start slow, she said finally. You will need to confront your mother. Set boundaries. Protect what we're trying to rebuild. Caleb nodded immediately. I will. I promise. And, she added gently, you must understand that this estate is not a symbol of power. It's a responsibility, a legacy of kindness and struggle, not something to flaunt or control. I do understand, he said. More now than ever. Leora exhaled softly, relief and uncertainty blending in her chest. Then we can try. Caleb's shoulders loosened, and a tremor of hope crossed his face. Try, he echoed, as if the word alone breathed new life into him. Before either of them could say more, Mama Razi approached with urgency. Madame Leora, she began, Madame Isolde is demanding to see you and Master Caleb in the drawing room. The air shifted instantly. Leora glanced at Caleb. His jaw tightened, not with fear this time, but determination. Let's go, he said. They walked hand in hand, tentative, but together into the drawing room. Isolde stood at the center, her posture stiff, her face pale. Not the monstrous fury from the night before, but something more human and more broken. You called us? Leora asked quietly. Isolde's hands trembled. I'm not here to fight, Caleb frowned. Mother? Isolde swallowed. I was wrong. The words hung in the air, trembling, fragile. She continued, voice shaking. I lost myself to fear. Fear of losing status. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing my son. Her eyes flicked to Leora. And I took that fear out on you. I judged you harshly, unfairly, cruelly. Leora breathed slowly, letting the truth settle. I can't ask for forgiveness, Isolde whispered, but I can ask for a chance to atone. Caleb's eyes softened, though he remained silent. Leora stepped forward. What do you want, Madame Darrow? Isolde's voice cracked. A chance to stay, a chance to change, a chance to learn who you really are, without pride blinding me. Leora studied her carefully, searching for sincerity. She found it. Finally, she nodded. You may stay, but the cruelty ends here. Isolde bowed her head, a tear slipping down her cheek. Thank you. Caleb exhaled shakily, relief washing over him. He looked at Leora with profound gratitude. The three of them stood in the center of the gallery, a broken family that, for the first time, felt like it had the possibility to heal. Later that night, Leora returned to the garden. Caleb joined her silently, standing beside her under the stars. He reached for her hand. This time, she didn't pull away. Together, they looked out at the estate, the flowers, the pathways, the house glowing softly under the night sky. It was hers, but it could also be theirs, if they rebuilt it brick by brick, heart by heart. Slowly, patiently, honestly, the storm had passed. And now, under the blessing of the night sky, something tender and new began to grow. Life teaches us that the weight of truth can be heavy, but the burden of silence is heavier. Leora's journey reminds us that strength is not the absence of fear. It is the courage to face it. True power lies not in wealth or status, but in integrity, compassion, and the willingness to heal what others have broken. Love, too, is not measured by promises but by actions, by growth, and by the choice to stand beside someone even when the truth hurts. May we all find the bravery to speak our truth, protect our worth, and open our hearts to change both in ourselves and in others. If this story moved you, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. And if you enjoy powerful African cinematic folktale dramas, feel free to subscribe to the channel for more emotional storytelling.